Hello, good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Cunningham. I'm the AVP of Alumni Relations here at Lehigh. We have a great webinar today with Professor Patrick Zoro, who is a College of Business professor. Before we get into our discussion today, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping things. We have about 160 of you registered for this webinar, which is amazing. I'm glad you could make the time in your day. So the way that we are going to organize this webinar is Professor will speak for 5 or 10 minutes just on what he's doing in financial engineering, some of the exciting things happening in that department. And then we'll turn and spend the rest of the time on your questions. The way that you will ask those questions is if you take your mouse and you go to the bottom of your screen, there will be a little chat icon that looks like a cartoon with the dots in it. Chat, just hit that and a window will pop up that says Zoom webinar chat. And you will type your message in where it says type message here. I will read the questions aloud and we will answer your questions in the order they come up. Someone is saying
I can hear you.
Muted. Yeah. Go ahead. Okay. Sorry, there was a question about whether you can hear me or not. Type your questions in and I will read them aloud. And at 1 o'clock, we will end our webinar. And it will be available for recording in case you miss any part of it or want to share it with friends. All right, with that. After more than 20 years working in New York City as a banker, Professor Patrick Zoro came to Lehigh and is now teaching finance and insurance topics in the College of Business and is the Perella Department of Finance Program Manager. All right, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. So let's talk about financial engineering. What is it? We're going to have a conference pretty soon, which we're going to title Quant/Financial Engineering, and it's basically the same thing. We're looking at topics pertaining to data, pertaining to finance, and pertaining to math and engineering. So it's an amalgam of topics. And the way we know that is because most of our graduates end up in lots of different industries. We have them working for GE, people at Goldman Sachs, people at Cromartie, BNP Paribas, and doing lots of things. Either they are programming, they're on quant desks, they're trading, and that's what's exciting about this this program is that it enables you. It's a master's program, enables you to have access to great information, great ways to manage that information. I mean, keep in mind that in the past few years alone, 90% of the data has been created. So think of all that information that is being processed nowadays through your iPhone, through your Facebook account, through lots of ways. So 90% of the data that you have currently has been created only a few years ago. So how do we manage that information? And how that's going to impact, and we'll discuss this, I'm sure, with a further question, but the type of jobs that you could have in that industry. And again, we're not talking about programming, it's not a computer science. We are forming business people with a bent on quant, and more importantly, as we do in all the program at Lehigh, we want them to be problem solvers. So not masters of everything, not programmers, but you need to understand the world that you're living in. So, and essentially the program has 3 components. It's got a finance component, it's got a math and engineering. And combined, it provides the students a very good foundation on which to build. Now, that's the academics, that's the curriculum. In addition to that, you know, we have alumni nights. In fact, we had one 2 weeks ago in New York City, where all the alumni get together and we bring in some graduates to help them obviously get jobs and further their career. We have a podcast where we talk about lots of interesting topics having to do with blockchain, having to do with machine learning, which are terms that if you're going to be in this field, you need to know what these are and how to operate and what they really mean and what the impact is going to be. Something very simple as machine learning. Everybody's talking about machine learning, which is related to deep learning, into artificial intelligence. I mean, everybody's familiar with artificial intelligence. Machine learning is kind of a version of this, and at the bottom of it is really regression analysis. So, but these are not new topics. Right? What's new is that the sheer amount of data that is now available. And that will impact on how you conduct your business and the type of job you're going to have. We also have a Twitter account where we have, most of our students gets involved in projects. They do competitions, so they learn, but they also very quickly get involved in the day-to-day, real-life interaction that they need with practitioners, in the market right now, so that they get to use the techniques. Certainly could let you know some of the project that we're working on, but machine learning, for example, is a big topic right now. Right? So basically, what this does is that the machine will learn what it is that it needs to know in order for you to be able to do your work. And that is something that is becoming very prevalent in the market. Think of it this way: whenever you go on Netflix and you pick a movie, right, and it makes suggestions to you, that's machine learning in progress. Whenever you mail a letter to the post office, how do they know what your writing looks like? That's machine learning. In finance, what this will mean is at some point, the way we conduct financial analysis might change. In fact, Excel, which everyone is comfortable with, is probably dying right now because it's not able to handle the sheer amount of information that's out there. I mean, in the past, when you used to do financial analysis, you would spread your financial statement, your balance sheet, your income statement, your cash flow, and you would just run the ratios and do projection and maybe use Visual Basics. But now you could use other elements besides more qualitative elements. How many people visited the stores? What are people saying about this product on the net? In fact, a lot of the projects that we have going right now with the students and the practitioners have to do with data scraping. Hey, I'm looking for customers for my business or for my plants, or where do I get them? So the students have access to big data, and they build algorithm on how to find that information. Where in the past, it would be based on relationships, knowledge of the industry. Now it's, well, you know what, everybody else is using it. Let's access that big data, that 90% that currently exists. So it's a very exciting world because the students are always challenged. And more importantly, the market in which they operate is also changing very quickly. So the better problem solvers they are, the better off they're going to be.
Great. All right. Alumni, please take this time to think about questions for Professor Zoro. And again, you can type your questions into the chat box and I will ask them. While you are doing that, I have a few questions that get us started. You're mentioning AI, and I'm wondering, so I just listened to, speaking of podcasts, one called How I Built This, with the guy who started Betterment, I believe it's called, that is using AI for investors like me, like instead of a Charles Schwab advisor or somebody, I would just go to Betterment, and they've gotten millions of dollars of people, billions at this point. Is that something that you're teaching in your classes, of that AI of financial?
We don't actually, well, like I say, if you were to put a box, the AI box, within the AI box, you've got deep learning and you've got machine learning. So yes, our students do learn, teach. We don't build robots that cook for you and help you out, but no, they interact with machine learning, and that's important. In fact, earlier this year I was in California with a FinTech group, and there's a company called Wealth Track, I believe, and essentially, and I tell that story to my students, maybe not to scare them, but to explain to them what's going on, is that Wealth Track essentially it's robo-advising for your portfolio.
Mm.
So in the past, what you used to do is you would go to Morgan Stanley or JP Morgan and say, I got so much money, please invest it for me.
Right.
Now, the quote-unquote computer will build an algorithm based on your level of risk and the amount of money you have and the amount of risk that you want, and it will build a profile and do it for you. And you could do it right off your iPhone.
Right. Right.
So when I teach my student, for example, portfolio theory, I say, well, so how is that going to, well, you still need to understand the basics or the theory behind it so that you could turn to your programmer and tell them, well, you have to build me a machine that's going to do that. So you still need the knowledge, the finance knowledge. It's just now you have to be cognizant that it's going so fast that you need to provide a solution the same way Elon Musk, is not building cars. He's basically providing a solution to the crisis that we have with the weather or whatever. So that's kind of the angle.
Gotcha.
Build them. Or for example, if you think about blockchain, which is a class that we intend on adding as well, is if blockchain turns out what it's supposed to turn out to be, we may not need banks anymore at some point.
That's a statement.
Well, let me give you another statement. Excel is dying.
I know.
So the students need to get into these programs cognizant of the fact that, I was prepared to do this and now it's gone. Well, yeah, it's moving, and it's moving very fast.
Right.
Soon we won't be driving our own cars.
Right. So I'll ask John's question first, because I'm wondering if he's asking this in reaction to we might not need banks. John is asking, does a financial engineering program have distance learning or online availability?
Yes, that's something that we intend on adding, and to allow the students to participate at that level, because we have lots of students in different areas of the countries that are interested, but they just can't make it. And most of our students lots of them are foreign students. I was at a conference last week, and there's a huge amount of competition out there for these jobs now. Everybody is offering a data analytic programs. Right?
Competition for jobs.
For competition for jobs in that industry.
They're looking for employees, or
the
employees are looking?
No, employees are looking for jobs in that industry. But at the same time, it's in reverse as well. You could see that employers realize, if this student comes out of school, I'd rather him know Python and R rather than Excel. Right. Because it's basically taking Excel to the next level because of its ability to handle data. Now, does it mean that you have to be a programmer? No, but you need to know how to handle it and how to build your algorithm. That's very important. Right. So to answer this question, yes, that is something that we're working on. Okay,
we'll let you know. Okay, we had a question from Allie. A huge amount of data that has been accumulated over the years. Do you think by using this data and machine learning, it's possible to predict if and when the market will crash?
Interesting question. That is precisely one of the projects that we're working on with the four of our students. They're looking for falling knives. And essentially, a group of investors want us to find out, well, this is my portfolio. Tell me what it is that I should be doing to make sure that I don't end up in a crash situation or I buy the right stocks. And what we're currently doing is, first of all right, what are the items that are going to be important for you to decide whether or not you're going to have a crash? So the machine itself will learn and tell you what to do, but you need to point into the right direction. So for example, should we be looking at financial statements? Obviously. Should we be looking at past activities in terms of the stock? Yes, the stock market. But what else can we be looking at? Government decisions? Like I said, what people are saying about the stock, about the market. Now keep in mind that when the market crashed in '87, there was a question that went out. It says, why, to 1,000 people, why did you sell on that day? There was no one particular reason why people did it. now. It was a different reason. But yeah, they all did it at the same time. So now, about 30 years later, we want to be able to find out exactly what's driving the market. And it's out there, if you have access to all of the data, it's out there. It's just that you have to know how to manage it. And yes, I mean, that's something that people are trying to find out. What's going on? How can you predict the next stock market crash? We've been 10 years without a recession. We're due for some slowdown at some point. So yes, that's totally possible.
Yeah. So John McCauley asks, where's the competitive advantage using machine learning for trading? If everyone has access, how can someone beat the market? There are still cases being made for not being able to beat index investing and periodic rebalancing.
And that's the question, right? Because everyone has access to the information, and everyone is going to now, let's say if everyone goes from Excel to R or Python, right? And there's a lot more information. Everything's going to go that much faster. So it's going to be a race to the top. And you won't have that much time as a graduate to just wait around and see. You have, and this is a reason why as soon as you graduate, you have to be operational right away. In the past, because there was a certain delay by the time you make a decision and the time you act and the ability to manage information. But now it's a lot more difficult, and everyone wants to know about these products. I mean, just go out and Google about Excel and you see what's really going on. So if you can't use Excel anymore, then you have to use Python. I mean, Excel is based on Python, but then it becomes a programming language. So yeah, there is a race at the top at this point.
And race to the top, you mean like who can build the best algorithm to use
yes,
that data?
Correct. I mean, in the past, you used to see advertisement in the Wall Street Journal. Well, we beat the index, and we are the top 5 or the top 3. But now it's going to happen instantaneously because everyone accesses information, so you're going to have to process that much faster. Now, is it a race to the top? Yes. Is it a faster race? Yes. And again, that's the reason why students need to be operational from the get-go as soon as they graduate.
Okay. Fred asks a question, is there a set of standard IT tools that Lehigh students learn in the financial engineering program? For example, data science with Python and R, which you have talked about a little bit, business analytics and business intelligence with Microsoft Power BI.
I will say this, and because the market is changing so quickly and because there's so much data, the program is built to be as nimble as possible. For example, we're probably going to be adding some new features to the program to respond to what's going on out there. And some of the activities that we're doing relate to that. The podcast, we did a podcast on blockchain, we did a podcast on machine learning, and a few others. So we want to be reactive as much as possible. So the students right now are exposed to Python, to R, to MATLAB. We expect to pump up the volume a little bit more in terms of graduation because we want to be able for them to have even more knowledge of these tools. Again, not making them programmers, but they should know at least to do some coding relating to financial situations.
Speaking of the students, would the students be allowed to use any dedicated machines for running HFT simulations? That's a question from Aaron Dedich.
They would, the case studies right now open-ended, and as long as they're able to get the job done, that certainly can. We're exposed to, when the assignment in engineering class, for example, is being given on data scraping, they don't say, well, use Python or use R. They say, well, this is the problem that you have, solve it. And within a group, you have to be nimble enough to be exposed to all different types of softwares and packages.
Okay. So as we're waiting for people to type in their questions, you said something in your intro that piqued my curiosity about data scraping. And I'm wondering, the data scraping, where are they getting that data, and are there privacy issues around all of that?
Well, yes. one of the projects that we have, for example, has to do with finding investors. And you know, where do you get them? Well, if you know them, so you just knock on the door and find them. But if you don't know who they are and where they are, but you know that you want a certain type of investors, you need to know what to look for and obviously where to look. And that's also a challenge, right? Because yeah, you could go on Google and just Google it out and write a program that does that. You have access to information as well that is public. And you're correct, more often than not, the issue that we're running into is because the company says, well, I would love you to work on my project, but I don't want to give access my private data, to outsiders. So, but yet, having said that, I believe that Twitter made its database available to Congress. And to this day, it is such, and it's growing up every day, it's such a massive amount of information, they don't know how to manage it. So the issue is not so much access, it's going to be, what do we do with it and how to analyze it. In fact, I did a podcast on parallelization recently, which basically states that, there's so much data available out there that we need ways on how to analyze the data, which is called parallelization. We have basically two computers doing the work, you're splitting the work in order for you to get it done quicker. So it's moving fast.
Right. Okay. How is Lehigh's program in this different than other schools?
The program, well, when we say program, there's a curriculum, right? And if you go online and you type Master of Financial Engineering, and you'll find out most of the time, you'll learn about stochastic math, and you'll see the word data scraping, and you'll see the word machine learning, and some of them actually blockchain. So the curriculum itself is I wouldn't say it's the same, but it's the same flavor. What differentiates us, for example, and you could do it on your own right now, if you were to go on Twitter and type Master of Financial Engineering, you're going to see the one that are the most active. And I think we're I checked not too long ago, and we were among the top 3. So, and by active, we mean that we give projects to our students, we take them out, we visit the companies, the practitioners, we have alumni event, we participate in competition like star competition, and where they offer the program and they compete with other schools. So there's a lot of activities with the students. And that, I think, is a good way to figure out really what the company is doing. There's rankings as well. But what's more important from my point of view is really, what's actually going on. What are they actually doing? And you could see through the alumni what kind of job they got. And you could see through the works that they're doing or the projects, the type of projects they're undergoing. And then, of course, you could see what they're studying, but that everyone kind of study more or less the same thing.
So quick question from Bob, and then I'll get back to Scott's question. The programs you mentioned that are replacing Excel, is that R and Python?
Well, I mean, again, Excel is not dead. And they may have still a long time to go. But obviously, if you were to spread or look for, what people like throughout the United States, if they like a particular company, there's so many rows you could look for in Excel, right? And then in terms of columns, there's limits. You don't want to be limited. So it depends what you're doing, right? At this point, if you're in accounting, I think Excel is still being used, although I hear that R and Python are being also used in that area. So it is starting. You should still know about Excel. But like everything else, I mentioned blockchain and banks, Excel and Python. You have to start thinking, and not just the student, quite frankly, the professors as well. You need to reinvent yourself, and that's what we're trying to do in the program. That you need to realize what's going on out there and to be more forthcoming. And it helps the students as well to get better jobs.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of jobs, Scott's question says he's enjoying the talk. You've spoken about how technology is impacting current jobs. What new jobs do you think will be created due to technology in this space?
Well, I think the job is going to be called a problem solver job, right?
Perfect for Lehigh.
Yes. Well, I mean, I will tell you that when I went to the West Coast, we met people at Visa, for example, and the one that's in charge of the payment system graduated from Lehigh, but I think it was a degree in biotech engineering. I said, well, this has nothing to do with what you're doing. The point is that he was very lucky that his program taught him to solve issues and solve problems. And frankly, when you go to work in financial industry specifically, you have to be adept at, at the new ways of learning and how to manage the process. And you have to be nimble enough. And that's what we do with our students. We teach them the principles, but then have to be nimble enough to undertake any projects. One of the projects that we're doing right now, a student looked at me and said, but there's nothing. Yeah, but that's right. There is nothing. No one's going to tell you what to do. You have to come up on some of the search that we're doing. You have to come up with ways to look for items, and you have to decide what's important. For example, if you're looking for investors, the type of investors you're looking for, and you have to decide where to look. And you mentioned the data availability, which is not a lot of it is available. Some of it might be private, some of it might not be private. So students have to build this thing from scratch, literally.
Aaron will answer your question via email. He's asking about these competitions, but we'll get to that on email because I do want to get to this last question from John. Any thoughts on the Libra proposal by Facebook as a digital currency, and what are the benefits compared to the US dollar-based electronic transactions? In 2 minutes or less.
Okay, great. In 1944, there was I'm serious, the Bretton Woods conference. And at that time, Keynes, anyone in finance should know what that is, said that we should have a basket of currency. Now, he lost that, and the dollar became the currency of choice. Facebook, i.e., and the other companies working with Facebook said that, well, maybe we should have another currency. Maybe we should have a basket of currency. It's needed because lots of people in this world, I think about 2 billion, do not have access to a banking system. But it's a threat. And I mentioned the blockchain and no more banks, I should say Libra and no more banks. Yes, that's a possibility.
All right. Well, we are out of time. That went very quickly. And I think we've been posting here some of the information, but we'll also get this out to you via email about the podcast and the upcoming conferences and ways that you as alumni can get involved in the program and with Professor Zoro. Any last words and parting advice for our guests?
I will say, again, just think of it this way. 90% of data was created only a few years ago. And it's not just for finance, for anything for that matter. I think at the end of the day, maybe we should start, the public should start to get paid for the data that we're providing to everyone in that matter.
I would vote for you.
Yes.
Make that happen. Well, thank you, everyone. And I hope you'll join us at our next Mountain Talk. Have a great day.